Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
If the government is vulnerable anywhere in the country, at least the pollsters tell us this, they are vulnerable in the west of England, where until the last election, of course, there were Liberal Democrat MPs, and where a Labour candidate came close to being elected in the city of Plymouth. It's emerged that the Green Party there is considering not putting up a candidate in order to get a Labour MP elected. We will talk to the Green Party in a moment. First, Martin Oates, who's political editor at BBC South West. Tell us about the constituency, Martin.
Plymouth, Sutton and Devonport is the most marginal seat in the South West. It's traditionally a Tory-Labour contest. The Conservative defender held on in 2015, but by just 523 votes. And
the Greens got what, roughly? More than 500.
More than 500, yeah.
So the logic is pretty obvious.
The logic's pretty obvious. They're also offering actually a deal to the LibDems over in Newton Abbot, where the Tories have a much bigger majority. But I think what's noticeable is we've had all this talk of a progressive alliance. We saw the Greens not stand a candidate in Richmond Park and then saw the LibDems take it from the Conservatives. They seem to have arrived at the stage of trying to hammer out concrete specific deals within a day and a half of the Prime Minister saying she wanted an election, I think possibly even before Parliament had voted for it.
And it could make a difference.
It could. Now, a lot of people have pointed out the obvious seat for this, arguably the perfect seat for this arrangement, is St Ives down the tip of Cornwall, because there, that's a Lib Dem seat from 97 to the last election. There, the Green vote alone, had it switched to the Lib Dems, would have seen the Lib Dem defender hold the seat. And also an interesting twist, the previous Lib Dem MP, Andrew George, has done a lot of campaigning publicly across the country with the Green leader, Caroline Lucas. So there could, as I say, be a perfect fit there.
All right, well, let's turn to the Greens. Thank you very much, Martin. Molly Scott-Cato is the Green Party MEP for the southwest of England and is on the line now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
What discussions have you had?
Well, I think it's important to set the discussions in context and to say that the reason we're talking about this is that, like a lot of progressives, we're very concerned about the direction that the Tories are taking the country. I think they're using Brexit as an opportunity to move us to the right, and we're seeing crises in our public services and a really bleak future for our young people. Theresa May's given us an opportunity to change all of that because she's opened up the possibility of changing the way power works in this country. But to use that opportunity, we need to cooperate as parties of opposition who don't want that Tory future.
And what are the realistic chances of that?
Well, yesterday our co-leaders wrote to the leaders of the Labour and Liberal Democrat parties and asked them to try and move beyond the tribal politics of the past and cooperate for the sake of the country. And we're waiting to hear what the response is.
Okay, so you sent off letters yesterday. I'm not sure that was widely known. You've sent off letters to Jeremy Corbyn and to Tim Farron, suggesting what?
At this stage, we're just suggesting the possibility of discussing what the options might be. And I think it would be unlikely that we would have any kind of national arrangement, but we would like the leaders to say that they are open to the idea of local parties coming up with alliances and arrangements where that might help to challenge the Tory majority effectively.
And it sounds as if in Plymouth you've sort of taken matters into your own hand, and crucially it sounds as well, or perhaps you could confirm this, that the local Labour Party in Plymouth is up for it.
Well, I'm not actually involved in the discussions in Plymouth, but I'd like to draw your attention to another example closer to where I am, which is what happens in Stroud, Cheltenham and Gloucester. There's 3 seats there that fall naturally to Greens, Liberal Democrats and Labour. At the moment, all 3 are held by the Tories. In Stroud, when I was a councillor there, we managed to have a working arrangement with Labour and the Liberal Democrats that kept the Tories out of power. We've run the council very effectively, and I think we could look to extend that now to parliamentary seats, and I really think this is something the country is crying out for.
And if Labour come back to you and say
politics of the past,
if Labour say that, hang on a second, we always stand in every seat, it's in our constitution, it's what we do, which I think they're quite likely to say, at least as an initial move, what would your reaction be to that?
I think there's 2 things there. I think one is that even if they stand, it's a question of how you allocate resources, and people can be aware of which seats you're targeting. But I think also what we might be looking to is just have an arrangement where we indicate where we think the most likely person to beat the Tories is. I mean, to be honest, people vote a lot tactically, but it's not always clear what the best tactical voting strategy is. And so actually what we saw from Richmond Park is that it doesn't particularly matter if Labour doesn't become part of this agreement, because when the Greens made very clear indication that the Liberal Democrats were the most likely to beat Zach Goldsmith, Labour's voters actually followed that cue. So I think the Greens are trying to give leadership here to say, let's use this opportunity to stop the Tories damaging our country.
And you put it in those terms. Other people might put it in terms of remain and leave, and say, actually, this is an opportunity for people who wanted to remain and who now would, at the very least, like a soft Brexit, perhaps stay in the single market, etc., etc. This is an opportunity for them.
I think the Prime Minister is very keen to keep all the focus on Brexit, partly because that causes Labour a lot of problems, but we really need to see that a lot of power will change hands at this election, and there'll be a lot of other issues on the table. The question of the crisis in our prisons and our hospitals and our social care system. You know, we just cannot afford another 5 years of Tory government.
Right, well, you've sent the letter and you haven't yet had a reply, obviously, but, well, when you do come back and talk to us about it. Molly Stock-Tato, thank you.